if you are not following up with your prospects, you're literally throwing away money. Okay, so in this video, I'm going to go over exactly how you can set up follow-up sequences in SmartLead that will actually convert. So this has been tested across 50 plus clients that we're currently working with, and these are the best follow-up sequences that we have today. I'm going to show you a basic strategy and also a more advanced strategy that's going to be more multi-channel. But for most people, the basic standard strategy is going to be very effective, and you won't quite need to do the multi-channel approach. In smaller markets, you might want to, but it's absolutely not necessary. So basically be going over how to formulate a campaign that will effectively never really run out of leads, because that's the issue with a lot of lead gen companies, is if you're working with a client in a quite targeted market, you might run out of leads relatively quickly, right? And that's why the follow-up is so important. If you're constantly just sending one email all the time and then being done with that lead, you're leaving, as I say, money on the table, and there's a much more efficient way to do it. So this is what it looks like from an overview. This is what the workflow would look like. You'd be sending 3 emails in a sequence and then recycling that lead every 45 days. This is what we do to see the most effectiveness from our campaigns, right? So email 1 would just be a standard angle. It could be a direct offer, it could be your lead magnet, it could be another intent trigger you're looking for if you're using Clay, right? But email 1, for example, might look something like this. So hi. But email 1 might look something like this. So hey, first name, add a bit of personalization about something that's on their website or a recent blog. And then I noticed you were hiring for an SDR in location. Is growing the sales function at your company a priority going into Q2? We help companies like yours increase monthly recurring revenue without increasing headcount. We partnered with companies like Amazon and booked them 39 sales calls in just 15 days. I'm confident we could do the same for you. Would this be worth a chat? So it's a pretty standard first email. Obviously, the aim of this video is not to go over that first email, but more actually the follow-up. So once you have that first email and maybe you do a bit of split testing, what you want to do is actually go ahead and add 2 follow-ups. I recommend 2 follow-ups. And a lot of people in the space just have 1 follow-up, but I actually think it's potentially better to have 2. But I actually think it's better to have 2. Once again, something we've tested and we've seen a higher response rate overall when we add 2 follow-ups. Okay, so to add these follow-ups in, all you need to do is just add a step, add email, and then configure your follow-up message, right? So what we would put usually in email 2 is a case study, right? So this is really important. When you're sending that first email, you need to make sure it has 0 links in whatsoever, because it needs to land in the inbox. However, if your follow-up is in the same thread, i.e. there's no subject line, which you do want to do, then you can actually put a link in the second email, because the first email is already in their inbox. So if you're replying to the first email, you can actually add links and things into the second email without having to re-enter the primary inbox. So it's just a little hack that we use, and it's really effective because we can say things like, hi, first name. We can say, things like, hi, first name. We have also partnered with a similar client to yourself, and then maybe list the client name, right? ABC Limited or whatever. Let's put it in here. Here is a link to the case study, so you can see what kind of results we can generate for companies like yours, right? And then I'd add in the actual link to the case study, okay? So I'd probably, when you put in this link, you want to make sure that people are opening it in a new tab, so they're not clicking off your email and it's still open in the same tab. But anyway, if we just put, here's a link to the case study so you can see what kind of results we can generate for companies like yours, add the case study, and then once again, a soft call to action. Would this be worth exploring? Right, just nice and soft. It will just prompt the response. But really the main thing here is actually putting that case study link in. So let's say, for example, I have a case study page. Perfect. Then I'll just copy and paste this link, put it in here, and then we would want to change it. So open link. Perfect. And then we would want to change it. So you want to go here, click on edit link, and click open in new tab and update it. So when someone's in your email, this will open a new tab and keep your email open, because sometimes if you put a link in there and they click on the link and it takes them to the web page straight away in that tab, then your email's lost. They need to try and re-find it again to reply, and it adds too much friction in the process. So if you can add it so it opens in a new tab, it keeps your email open also, which increases the likelihood to get a response. It's these small percentages, but they do add up over time, especially if you're running at volume. So email 2, I would always recommend putting a case study link in there. That's really going to help. What we usually do is have the first follow-up 2 days after the first email, and then the second follow-up 4 days after the second email, right? So if we wanted to add the third follow-up, we'd go in here, change this to 4 days after, and then once again, we would put a new message in here. What we like to do for email 3 is add like an intro offer or a softer, what we like to do is add an intro offer or like a downsell type thing, right? So if the main offer isn't relevant to them, then we can also, so what we like to add in email 3 is a bit of an intro offer. So this is just something that they can do or join to be part of a community where we can nurture them, right? So for example, an intro offer could be just a free school community, a free Facebook group, a free basically community to capture details, but also warm them up a little bit, right? So this is just an attempt to get them to actually take some action. The intro offer we like to run with is maybe adding them to a free school community or inviting them to a free school community where they can learn more about actually increasing their sales, increasing their MRR, etc. Right? So you want to have some sort of soft intro offer, something that they can actually click on, consume. It could just be a playbook you send over, it could be a Loom video, it could be a community, but you want to have some sort of offer or lead magnet. I suppose this is sort of similar to a lead magnet that you can send over, and this will just help warm up the prospect and be more likely to get a response. Because the truth is, if they haven't responded to your first 2 emails, partly it can be timing, but it's more so they just don't feel encouraged enough yet, right? So we need to do something, generate more sales assets, get them in front of more sales assets to actually increase their desire to respond to you, right? So that's what we want to go with email 3. It would just look something like, hey, first name, not sure if this is relevant to you right now, but we have a free school community where we teach, let's say for example this is in the finance space, financial leaders like yourself, maybe not teach but share insight on how financial leaders like yourself can generate more sales through intent-driven outbound marketing. Okay, intent-driven outbound marketing. Here's the link to the community. Here's the link to community. You can either have 2 calls to action, either saying, would this be of interest, I can send over the link, or just send over the link to the community. I'll probably just send it over. Once again, it reduces friction. Here's the link to the community. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay, and then hopefully this will just capture their details, get them in the school community where you can nurture them over a longer period of time and eventually warm them up so they can actually join a sales call. But that's how you set up the follow-ups in Smart Lead. You very simply just add these steps, add the time in between emails. I recommend 2 and 4 days. And then once that is complete, that's been running, you've added your leads in. Every 45 days, when that campaign is complete, you can recycle these leads, but you will need to change email 1. You can need to change email 2 and 3 slightly, but it's very important that you change email 1. So all the people that haven't replied, haven't opted out, haven't booked calls, you can retarget those leads. They will not remember the cold email they received from you 45 days ago, but you'll just need to come up with a new message, a new initial message, a new script. Because that first one, partly once again could be timing, but it's more likely that it just wasn't good enough to actually encourage them to take action, right? It didn't provoke their pain, it didn't provoke their desire enough to actually take action. So it gives you another shot at trying to get this lead on the phone, but you need to come up with a new type of message. Don't just change a few words, change the strategy. If you've been going with a lead magnet, then go with a direct offer, and vice versa. If you've been going with a direct offer, lead with a lead magnet and see how it performs. But every 45 days, you can continually recycle these leads, unless they've opted out, unless they've booked a call, etc. But that's just something you can do for the long term if your market's quite limited and you might be worrying about that. You know, oh, I want to do cold email, but I've only got maybe a couple thousand people in my total addressable market. No problem, you'll just need to recycle these leads more and potentially look at multi-channel strategies as well. So going into multi-channel strategies, it starts exactly the same, starting on email for the first 3. But what I also recommend is adding in 3 extra steps, which will be connecting with these people on LinkedIn, which you can use HeyReach, Dripify, or another LinkedIn automation tool for, and then actually giving them a cold call. So it goes in order of sort of personalization in terms of the platform. So email is going to be the least personal, LinkedIn second, and then cold call actually being the most personal. So over time, you're going to start to engage in these leads across multiple platforms. They'll see your name repeatedly and they'll be warmer to actually taking a call and potentially stage advancing in your pipeline as well. So that's just a little bit about the advanced strategy. The multi-channel will get you better results. Once again, this is better for a limited market. If you have a very big TAM, very big total addressable market, I recommend just running with this one. If it is quite tight-knit, then go with the more advanced strategy, add LinkedIn and add cold calling in there as well. But that should sum up exactly how to actually create your follow-ups in Smart Lead. Really nice and simple. Once again, the setup will be the same as usual. Turn the open tracking off, turn the link tracking off, okay? But you can add these links in email 2 and 3 as long as it's in the same thread. So don't put that subject line in there and you'll be fine. So if you've got any questions, pop them in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer. But hopefully this video has been useful on how you can create follow-ups for your email campaigns, and I shall see you on the next one. Thank you.